hope you're already making a ton of progress toward your 2024 goals. And if you're using the free Notion template that I have created for you, which the link is below if you'd like to download it, then I hope that you're getting through each step and that you're getting so much clarity and feeling so confident in your ability to not just achieve your goals at the end of the year, but enjoy the process of moving toward that. Now, one thing that we have to talk about is the section on obstacles and intentions. And for those of you who haven't downloaded the Notion template and you've set your goals just in general, this is a really important step in the process that often gets overlooked or neglected, and it can actually be a real pain point at some point down the line. Addressing the obstacles that we may face or that we're faced with, and setting our intentions for how we're going to respond to those or how we're going to address them. This puts us firmly back in our power, because too often when we experience some kind of difficult situation in life, we give our power away because we focus on the things outside of our control rather than the things that are within our control. And if you've read my book, Outrunning Your Emotions, chapter 4 is all about our personal power and how important it is to work with our energy and direct our energy, our intention, our focus toward the things that we can manipulate, that we can influence, that we can impact. Because there's so many things outside of our control that we can absolutely focus there, but we lose power when we do that. Right. And so when we are setting our goals, we're feeling good, right? That's within our control. When we are starting to create a schedule and doing our habits, feeling good, these are within our control. And then we are faced with an obstacle. And then we are faced with resistance. And what do we do? So this is why, as you're going throughout the process, you want to complete this obstacles and intentions section, which we're going to talk about how to do today. But you also want to return to it time and time again, going through each month to say, okay, what are the potential obstacles right now that didn't exist when I first started this in January or December or whenever it was, right? Or if you find as you're going through the weeks, the days, the months that you're facing this resistance, you put this thing down and it's not getting done, it's time to go through this table, the obstacles and intentions table, to address what this is. So for those of you who aren't using the Notion template, and I highly recommend you do, to set your goals. It's such a way to keep track of things as you go throughout the year. But however you have set your goals for the year, the obstacles and intentions part of the process is really important. And this is when we sit down and we either proactively look at what we think obstacles are going to be to achieving the goal, or more honestly, we look at why aren't we doing this right now, or why haven't we achieved this right now? Because if this is something that we desire, if it's something that we want, if it's something that we think is going to help us, there must be something in the way of us having already achieved this. Why don't we have it already? And maybe the answer to that is, well, I just didn't think about it, and that's fair as well. But if there is something that you've wanted, or there's something that you think would be really good for you and you don't have it right now, it's important to look at these 4 core obstacles that might be showing up and to set your intentions. And in part 3 of my book, where I talk about our core needs, I talk about these core obstacles that we're faced with, right? People, circumstances outside of our control, our own beliefs, and our own actions. And I talk about it in the book in the context of processing our emotions and getting our needs met. But in the context of goal setting, it's really important to acknowledge that a goal is simply a desire to get a need met, right? And so these obstacles apply here as well. What people are preventing us from achieving this goal or taking this action? What circumstances are we faced with? What beliefs do we have, our own limiting beliefs, and what actions are we taking that is in opposition to this? What inaction is happening that is preventing us from getting this thing that we say that we want, that we know that we want? Right? And sometimes the answer is going to be that we don't actually want this thing. And doing this process of going through the obstacles and intentions can help us identify that. So let's talk about each one, right? Starting with people. People are not within our control. I don't care how close you are to them. I don't care how long you've known them. People and individuals are their own people, their own individuals. We don't control them, just like people don't necessarily control us. We may feel controlled by other people, but that's not them controlling us. That's us going along with their behavior or their actions, right? So it's important to know that when it comes to people as obstacles to us getting our goals met or achieving our goals, I should say, we are not in control of other people. We just aren't, right? And so acknowledging that, surrendering to that, not spending any of our energy or attention on trying to manipulate or trying to control them or trying to convince them, all of that firmly gives our power away. And when it comes to achieving our goals, we need to stay in our power. We need to keep that energy and that momentum, channeling that into a positive direction. So if people are an obstacle to you achieving your goal, if people are standing in the way of you achieving your goal, there are ways that you can address that. Whether that's confronting them, having a conversation with them, setting a boundary with them, removing them from your life if necessary. There are ways that we can address any kind of people obstacles. And what is a person obstacle basically? So let's say I have a goal to go to the gym and I have a young child that needs care and I can't go to the gym and leave the child on their own. Well, is there a babysitting option? Is there a different time that you can go when you do have childcare? That's an example of a people obstacle. Let's take work, for example. Let's say you want a promotion. Well, your boss or your boss's boss or whoever is going to be the one that is in charge of granting you that promotion, regardless of how hard you work and how much effort you put in, there's some person that is standing between you and the other side of that promotion. And so when it comes to how do you address that, do you have a conversation with that person? Do you let that person know that you're interested in the promotion? Do you get a mentor or another person to talk to that person? Once we start to realize that there's things that we can do to address that, then the floodgates start to open, then possibility starts to be achieved. Then things start to become clearer and we're using our energy in a way that keeps us motivated to move toward that goal. But it starts with confronting that obstacle and actually looking at that. Is there a person in the way of me achieving this goal? Let's say your goal is to have a relationship and to have a healthy relationship, romantic relationship. Well, you need a partner. There's another person that needs to help you achieve that goal, right? You can't have that without yourself. So, if that's the case, it comes down to what kind of person am I looking for? What actions am I taking? We're going to get into that in a second, but what people can I speak to within my network to help me connect with this type of person, right? If the problem is that you don't know that person that you're in that relationship with, then the way you address that is all the ways that you can connect, meet that person, do you download a dating app, whatever the case may be. And in doing that, rather than being discouraged at the fact that there's this obstacle, because we don't control people, right? We're actually using our personal power by focusing on how do we want to address this potential obstacle or real obstacle, right? If you want to feel more alive in your life and that is your goal, but you have someone in your life that's constantly negative and constantly dragging you down, well, do you spend less time with that person? Do you avoid that person entirely, right? These are things that we want to look at rather than fixating ourselves on changing the person or blaming the person or berating the person. We really want to use our energy constructively. And that's what processing our emotions is about. It's about channeling that energy in a positive way. The next one is circumstances. So there are so many life circumstances that are outside of our control. Natural disasters, political things, warfare, all these kind of things that can happen on a more serious level. But even on a day-to-day level, do you have a job? Is it a night shift job? Is it a 9 to 5 job? Do you work for yourself? What are your actual circumstances? We need to look at this and take these into account when we're setting our goals, because we can't just decide that this is my goal and not think about all the things that might be in the way of me taking these steps, right? If there were no circumstances, if there were no obstacles, then you would already have this thing. You would decide that you wanted it and you would have it. But that's not the way life works. So we need to look at our circumstances. If I want this incredible job, but I live in a really small rural town, that circumstance of where I live is going to impact the actions that I take. And so you need to not just set the goal for having the job and doing your resume and applying and all these things, but you need to look at, is my circumstance an obstacle to that? And can I do something? Can I move? Can I get a remote job? Can I save up and so that I can move? Whatever the case may be, the intentions come out of confronting that circumstance and actually looking at it in the context of our goal setting, right? Same way, if you have a family but you have this goal to travel, well, that's a circumstance. That's also people. So you need to consider those two obstacles and think, okay, how can I address this in a way that I can get this goal achieved because it's what will lead me to fulfillment? Or do I need to adjust the goal in a way so that I can still achieve that fulfillment, but it might look differently? This is all about working with rather than against life, rather than constantly fighting with and being in opposition to. How can I work with it to still get my needs met and to still find the satisfaction that I want? And there's always, always, always a way. Right? I really want to encourage you, even with people and circumstances outside of our control, there are always things that we can do to address it. So be sure that you're looking at these obstacles. The last two obstacles are within our control. However, that being said, they can be challenging to do on our own, right? It can be difficult to shift our limiting beliefs on our own, and I'll explain that in a second. It can also be really difficult to take different action on our own. So, knowing that if we're struggling with both of these things, sometimes we need to reach out to people. Sometimes we need to change our circumstances in the sense of leaving a job or changing our environment in order to address these obstacles. So when our beliefs are obstacles, you're probably familiar with limiting beliefs and not thinking that you're good enough and not feeling like you can achieve things. Our beliefs are really the core driver of our actions because they're the subconscious programming that we have. They're the standards that we have set, the rules for life, if you will, that we have for ourselves. And so we might not always be conscious of these beliefs. We might be conscious of the branches, the thoughts that stem from these beliefs, but we might not be clear on what these beliefs are. And so taking time to ask yourself, do I believe it's possible to achieve this goal? And see what kind of truths come from within you, right? When you're really honest with yourself, do I think it's possible? What are the worries that I have? What are the doubts that I have? What am I judging myself for? What am I judging other people for? Sometimes we have this fixed idea and this fixed concept about the world that is really skewed and that was developed in a moment of emotional pain, in a moment of not getting support and not getting our needs met. So we constantly want to be asking ourselves, is what I'm thinking supporting me in getting my goal? Or is it actually hindering me from getting my goal? And as I said, when it comes to addressing that belief, confronting it is the first step. Getting honest with yourself is the first step. Asking yourself, what do I want to believe? Asking yourself, what would be a more supportive belief? And if you're really struggling, reach out, get a coach, get a therapist, call a friend, get an expanded perspective from somebody outside of your mind and your subconscious, right? Listen to something inspiring, Google, ask the internet, and that could be, be careful with that, but it's just to get new ideas because our beliefs are formed on old ideas. And if we want to change our beliefs, expand our perspective, we need new ideas. So reach out, listen to podcasts, find books on the topic that you're interested in so that you can get a wider perspective. And the last obstacle are our actions, or I should say inactions, right? Sometimes the things that we're doing are preventing us from reaching our goal. Sometimes we really want to get fit, but we're constantly eating junk food, right? Sometimes we really want to work out, but we're constantly distracting ourselves with other things. It's really important here to look at, why am I not taking this action? Call yourself out for the actions that you're taking or you're not taking, and ask yourself, how do I want to address this? Right? Do I want to keep doing this? And it's not about just saying, I'm going to stop doing this. That's one trap that I've fallen into time and time again, that I know clients have fallen into. It's really easy to be like, well, I'm just not going to do this thing. However, that leaves a void in your mind and that needs to be filled because the default is going to be returning to the old action. So rather than just say, I'm going to stop doing this thing, you need to say, I'm going to do this thing instead. You need to replace that action with a different action. So for me, rather than scrolling on social media, I'm going to read a book. I'm just going to pick a random book off the shelf and I'm going to start reading it just to interrupt that default mode of acting, right? And again, sometimes it's about getting support from someone else, joining a support group, reaching out, finding other people who are on the same journey as you and creating a group, right? To hold yourselves accountable to that new behavior. But it's about actually first saying, what actions am I taking or not taking that are obstacles to me achieving this goal and getting this need met and feeling satisfied? And then how am I going to address that? What action am I going to take that is going to support me instead? How am I going to replace it? Right? Don't just say I'm going to stop. Okay. What am I going to do instead? And that's really important. I know, if you know my story, I struggled with addiction, and replacing using drugs and drinking alcohol with going to support groups and talking or calling someone who understood what I was going through was so crucial to overcoming that craving. We think that we can't be abstinent, but we can. We can't be abstinent if we just tell ourselves, I'm just not going to do this, right? But when we say, I'm going to do this instead, then we're allowing ourselves to move forward rather than remain stuck, right, with no way out. So remember the four main obstacles that all of us experience in life: other people, our circumstances, our beliefs, and our own actions. And as you're working through the goal setting template, this is already built into it for you. As you create a new task, it's there so you can see, okay, if I'm not achieving this, let me go through this table again and ask myself and get really honest with myself about what's blocking me from achieving my goal. And doing that over and over and over, you're going to find yourself so much more empowered. Because again, if you go back to the personal power grid, it's about using your energy, channeling your energy in a way that's constructive and supportive toward the things that you actually control and you can actually do something about. When you sit down and you look at and you think about how you want to address something and you build that into your daily habits and your plans and your goals, you're that much more likely to succeed. And I want you to succeed this year. So remember that. Let me know in the comments below what your biggest takeaway was from this video. If you want more if you want more videos on this topic, I should say, let me know. And good work achieving your goals. Keep going. Don't give up. You can do it.